in an entire series. But here we are on Romanticide for the first match of the day. In the bottom right, as the red Zerg for Freak of Freaks, he is Armani.
All right, and spawning up to the top left in the blue, it is our Terran. It is Maru. Whew. Haven't said that for a while.
When was the so you got to cast last season, right? They fit you in for a couple of days. That's right, yeah. It's not too out of shape.
Not too much. I was surprised at how, this sounds ridiculous, but I was surprised at how well I did in inverted commas. I didn't feel too rusty, so that's okay. We'll see how things go for today.
Yeah. Well, I said I could solo cast, but Kalaris was there just being like, what? I can do it, I guess. So I can still cast. He's not just a host, guys.
I think the exact conversation went, I'm right here, guys.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. But as much as I would love to take all of the credit for this wonderful TVZ broadcast and just talk up a huge storm, yeah, I'm really glad to have you. It's actually, I believe it is like pretty much legitimately the first time that we've cast together.
Yeah.
Aside from maybe an online cast 5 or 6 years ago at this point, maybe even longer. I kind of came in when you were still hosting, and then actually you weren't there for almost an entire year. So you're off doing a bunch of stuff, and then you came back, and it's always a pleasure to work with you. Yeah,
doing Heroes of the Storm stuff for quite a while, and then actually people are trying to do even more tournaments with that. But anyway, by the by, to StarCraft, let's get on with this. Reaper on the way for Maru to move on across over, and this will be spotted by the Overlord, so nothing too out of the ordinary. So Armani should be able to greet this nicely with the Queens and Lings on the way.
And what we saw from their TVZ and GSL was, yes, occasionally a different build, like absolutely the Terran player a little more, they actually gotta try and mix it up a little bit. And that comes down to like faster third CC, Starport equals Liberator or equals Banshee, Hellbat attacks. Like there's everything that they should be doing. But the Zerg player also usually chooses a couple things. And we saw a Nidus Worm, we saw, a Pull First, I believe. But what it did seem like was that Armani just did like the faster Spire play, the macro game. And again, those were on the old season map pool. So we had like classic Eternal Empire, TVZ back and forth, and that was fantastic. But here we are on a new map, Romanticide, and it is a big map, especially left to right. And I think that Armani, it seems that his power play, the thing that he is most comfortable with is that faster Spire. I would love to see him do it again here.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing that really stood out for me when Armani was going up against Maru, or even in this entire GSL run that he was in before, is that a lot of things just looked so much more smoother than I remember on Armani being. Even in that link control when he was trying to fend off the Reaper, just moving the wounded Lings back, just to make sure he's not losing any of them as this push is coming along. He's getting that Roach Warren down as well against the potential Hellions moving along.
Yeah, okay, so a bit of a change up. He's going to hide that in the back and just figure that Maru... the only reason that Maru would scout that is if Maru is going to dive with his Hellions, which you can't put it past Maru to not dive with his Hellions. Like, you could actually do that, but it's not the super common thing to do. So Armani's going to get away with that Roach Warren. Ideally now for Maru, he scouts the Roaches with the Hellions as they move across the map. That will give him a decent amount of time to respond. But if you notice back at home, Maru's gone for a third CC build. He's adding on a reactor because he wants to get those barracks productions as fast as possible. He wouldn't really have a lot of factory units to help out here, and that could be trouble.
And if these Hellions want to poke on a little bit further, those 8 Roaches would have pushed them off. Some people have, cleaned it up with Speedlings in the past, but it can be a bit treacherous, especially if Maru's paying attention. And 9 Roaches now about to pop on out. Nice little bit of creep spread going through the middle to be able to project those nicely through the middle of the map. And just pushes off this away for now. Maru off the back of this, getting his extra gases up, getting his starport down.
Ooh, that Ling sees that it is a just right swap over to barracks, you know, so that means there's not going to be a factory. A tank from a factory, and it's not even a tech lab on that factory right now. Like, Maru is really using it just to build things for other things, and that is maybe going to give him a lot of Marines to work with. But against 9 Roaches, that's definitely scary. Maru cancels his supply depots. He pulls everything up into the main base. Yeah, that's what you got to do.
Yeah, definitely, especially with those Ravagers morphing in. Just got to have these overlords in the right positions. Maybe they get a little bit of high ground vision, but it is a little bit difficult, especially over towards the main ramp. So can at least kind of shut down the natural for now, whilst posturing and trying to contain things for a little bit longer. I mean, from the starport, I suppose he could try and, get something going to push this away, but this will hold on at the front for a little bit longer. Oh, actually grabbing high ground vision. Few corrosive vials.
It's careful now for both parties. Maru doesn't want to overstim because he doesn't have combat shields, but have medivacs. But Armani doesn't want to get stimmed upon because this very quickly went from you barely have any units and none of them are very strong to your units might not be strong, but you have a lot of them. He was trying to get there to the 5 Marines at a time production as fast as possible. So I think there was a lot of respect there. There was a lot of, seeing what the situation actually had to provide. And Armani decides to pull back, which is actually a very good call from him. And he's going to use those roaches just to provide Ravager, corrosive vials, right, on top of what is eventually going to be Ling Baneling.
Yeah. I like the push out as well. Even though you're not getting true direct damage done, you're getting these small advantages here, there, and everywhere, right? ZG, if you're pushing out across the map like this, then the Hellions and Reapers aren't able to do anything about any creep tumors at the front that are getting pushed out towards Armani's 4th base. He can try and secure that, and then from there, just play the game out.
It's going to be difficult for Armani for 2 reasons, though, right? Like, the creep spread is definitely good. He's getting his 4th base up without being bothered. Definitely right about that. But there's 2 other things that are problematic. One, not a lot of anti-air, right? He didn't play with Aspire. He's trying to try now to, but there could be a few drops before that's ready to go. And he doesn't have very good upgrades. So any of those Ling surrounds that sometimes can tackle a single drop, for instance, suddenly are going to be a little more questionable, especially when Combat Shields finishes.
Yeah, makes sense. And they're going to push on in here. Nice little block with an Evolution Chamber. Tries to wrap around on these Hellions with the Lings. Gets 4 drones killed off quickly. But the cleanup occurs. That could have been more if the Evo hadn't gone down. So nice heads-up play by Armani.
That was actually a pretty nice EO block. You say so. It's clever. So a couple of drones go down. That's not such a big deal, but a much bigger deal is the triple drop. Armani has Aspire halfway done. I was getting excited for Burrow, but apparently not actually going to happen. And he's just got to rely on Queens to support him. He's got 5 Queens. It's not a lot. Another thing that happens when you do an earlier attack, you're not sitting on like 8 or 9 Queens. But if his army finds it, which it is not so far, he could be ready for it, just kind of like nip it in the bud. It's not. It's totally out of position. The main base is going to be under fire for a little bit, and then the medevacs can just evacuate whenever they want to.
Yeah, 3 medevacs with this amount of Marines is very, very strong in terms of firepower. Here come the Ravagers to try and help this out, as well as the Ling on a wraparound. Trying to use corrosive vials on the medevacs preemptively to get the position, but the Marines are just pushing forwards onto the Ravagers. Will clean up quite a few of them, picks up, gets on out. That's a pretty decent trade there for Maru.
I think that's a trade that like a Maru or Clem would make, but a lot of other Terrans would have been like, oh, the army's here, let's just skedaddle. But he actually just micros through the Lings, pardon me, and then goes after the Ravagers. Would not see that too often. Very nicely done. Now, that was the 1 drop Maru gets kind of for free. Armana has now 11 mutas on the way, starting up his upgrades as well, which, by the way, Maru has now fallen behind on. So he got that armory, he's getting into Drilling Claws, but he didn't start 2-2 really as fast as he possibly could have. Not at all, actually. Armani now taking the upgrade lead.
Yeah, that's the first information he got about the mutas. To a certain degree, he anticipated mutas. He didn't see the Spire when it actually dropped into the main base, but he can assume that this is Armani's, because it's in his playbook that it was going to be coming away from him. So very, very strong army to a certain degree. Will just kind of hold each other at bay in the middle of the map right now. I mean, to be fair, Armani's creep spread's been looking pretty decent up towards the north when it was his 5th base. This is interesting, picking off some of the free Marines there and actually not losing a muta just yet.
Yeah, I mean, if he gets a couple of Marauders, they're bios, so we kind of look at also being cheap, but Marauders really aren't that cheap, and this is a huge disruption in the production. 3 barracks now stalled out, missile turrets stalled out, and there's just a few more mutas a bit healthier, probably would have taken on those Marines too.
10 workers down. I like it a lot. Delaying the missile turret for a moment, of course, not too big a deal, but here come Banelings morphing in the middle of the map as we see Maru gearing up for Drilling Claws getting on the way. Thor's on the way here. He knows every component he requires against this army, and if Maru can get up to max against this, he'll be in good stead, but a lot of Banelings now morphing in, and this is the point where Armani starts acquiring a bank because he's almost maxed.
Exactly. 93 drones as well, expanding, continuing to creep spread, so he's kind of covering his angles. I mean, Maru is really just, it looks like he's, kind of turtling. He's like, I'm just going to get up to max, and then I'm going to move out, and probably also waiting for that 2-2, which again, Armani has been able to get ahead of, even starting up his +2 flyer attack. So he hasn't really invested too much more in the mutas. It's not like 25, 30 mutas, but 16, yeah, that +2 is probably worth it.
Ooh, I'm just going to move on through here. Doesn't really want to push through this, I don't think. We'll back off. That's hazardous, to say the least.
Yeah, a bit questionable, especially when you know that their armies, those Terran armies, are usually going to be bigger than yours once they're maxed, as you have so many drones. But Armani's actually going to pull the trigger.
There was a decent pre-spread here, but he's going to be pushing in from both angles with these Banelings. And they have to connect with a lot of the bio. The Mutalisks on the left-hand side actually did quite a bit of damage, but he's going to have to pull away on the right-hand side due to the fact that there's just too much bio. The pre-split from Maru, I think, was too powerful to deal with for that army from Maru.
Yeah, that was really questionable. It also just begs the question as to why. Why did you really have to make that attack happen? Was it really the best, most open Terran spot to attack into? No, not really. There was clearly an army. There was a couple of choke points. There was Thors and tanks. Like, a bit questionable on the attack, but Armani basically gets to do that attack. Unless it is so atrocious that he goes down 30 supply and they end up being even after that, he can do that with the economy he has. And Maru would love to counterattack immediately and take advantage of the lost Banelings and whatnot. It can't really happen, and he knows that. So he pushed out, and then he immediately retreated, just cleared up some creep.
Yeah, and that creep is the consolation prize. But he was like, okay, how much can I get off of this? And it only being creep is, it's decent, to be fair, because you want to slow your opponent down if he eventually wants to go for a counter attack or a push, and will take this engagement here quite nicely. Arnie doesn't want it just yet. Maru now takes the supply advantage for a brief moment until Armani gets to 200 for the first time in the game, effectively.
Yeah, Armani really wants to buy more time. I mean, his army could maybe take that on, with this around on creep, sure. But he's not, he's not there yet. He wanted to go up to a hive tech. He wants to do these run bys, which he is doing right now and doing a fairly successful job with it. The Thor goes down. Widow Mines have already fired. SCV is going to fall. He tries heading to the main base, going to be temporarily blocked as Maru races home to try and clear things up. And it will be cleared up eventually. But this was the time, bot. This was 18 SCVs down and a handful of army units.
I love that Armani was trying to use the advantages that Romanticide gives you. The fact that the Terran base onto the 4th is so far down towards the bottom. Maru was trying to defend that whilst pushing alongside that. And then Armani strikes from a different angle that is completely open. So good stuff by Armani. But Maru's not down now just yet. That's a lot of Banelings. They could do something.
They can just go ahead and bop back to Planetary.
Yeah.
No problem there. And Armani is really starting to accrue a bank. It was, it immediately replaced that attack, and then that run by actually took long enough that he is really starting to he's going to eventually get the gas bank as well. Right now, he spent it on upgrades and ultras and just a surplus of Banelings, truly, but he will eventually get that too. It's a scary position for Maru as Armani continues to expand and also takes out his base, or at least tries to. His last few Banelings actually getting the kill.
I thought they weren't gonna, because so many of the middle of the pack actually died instantly. And I was like, well, okay, he's being a little bit indecisive. He slightly pulled back for a second, went forwards again, but gets it. I'm not complaining.
Yeah, I was worried. I saw it on the red. I was like, oh, but he got it. And that is something that Maru doesn't really, he will eventually be able to slap down even 2 extra command centers, but he was kind of still maxing out. So he had the 1 extra, and he's going to lift his orbital, which, depending on how this game goes, that orbital will be either weak or very, very weak, right? Another attack off the right side before the planetary is done. Maru racing over here to defend. He's got 30 more army supplies. You figure if he's in position, he will grab this. But he's in position now, still doesn't save the command center. It goes down. The army's still actually being under fire here. Maru, is he just going to lose?
He lost a lot of units here. It was difficult for Maru to micro on every single angle he needed to. The army was very split up across a big concave there. Ling's trying to, at least to get a sensor tower. Not too bad at all. He's really keeping Maru on his toes with all of this. And Armani now takes a sizable advantage in terms of supply.
Yeah, that's why I was like, hold on, this is actually going really, really bad. It sucks that he couldn't defend his command center. He really did need to after losing his other command center. But I figured at least the army supply would be slightly in Maru's favor. Right now, it is dead even. The upgrades dead even. And Armani's even finishing off his ultra upgrades. About to have speed for those as Maru is forced to push on to creep. He's maybe even feeling a little bit all in despite having another command center on the way. This could be one of his last hurrahs. And Armani is once again looking for run-bys, counterattacks, trying to buy more time.
Yeah, it's looking good for Armani here at the moment. You might think, but Maru has so much supply in his army. As another push comes in here with those Ultralisks at the front, tanking up quite a lot. Bailey's connected with a lot of that bio at the front there as well. There's a little bit more behind these Thors. The Thors are doing a pretty decent job of shielding them for the moment, but there's just too much Zerg. They will overrun this army. And Lings are even in the mineral lines once again.
Yeah, he's really making this all in. Maru down to almost 100 supply against Armani's maxed out Zerg army. It looks like Armani is going to start the upset with game number 1. His Ultras do get taken down. His Ultras are infamously the one thing that really throws your lead, but I think he's got this with Ling Baneling, even Corruptor on the way.
Yeah, definitely so. Wow. Amazing. What a game by Armani to start things off. GG. Armani takes the first game 1-0 here on Romanticide. Brilliant stuff. He was even going into Corruptors for the little follow-up after all of this. Armani was playing brilliantly, ZG.
Yeah, he played that really well. I mean, I think the one mistake was that push in on the 4th when Maru was clearly prepared, but it's hard to call that a mistake when he knew that he had time. As long as it wasn't the worst thing to ever happen in StarCraft 2, he would have time, and he used that time brilliantly to go for the run by. Really excellent use of his style of play, as well as that map where it can be hard to beat bot between left and right for the Terran army.
Hard to beat bot between. Yeah, it's a really cool map to watch out there by Armani. I liked the fact that he was able to constantly keep up the pressure here against someone like Amaru in this situation. It's not even like Maru didn't even really look lost by any stretch of the imagination in this game. I think he was playing his Maru ways. He didn't quite get what he wanted to constantly with drops, I think. It was only that one big drop that he went into the main with, but he got a bit with it, I suppose.
Yeah, he got a bit. I feel like it was at least keeping tabs on the Zerg player, making sure they didn't expand without something being said. But the truth was that Armani actually was expanding over to the top right side, and nothing ever attacked that. I mean, Maru got one drop, and then the mutas are out, and that can deter drops. You know, it is sometimes the better thing, which Maru showed us, to go for the max out and then move. But to have no more drops for the rest of that game, I mean, that is a little bit weird. Usually we expect you to at least 1 or 2 just to try and be out in the map, try and stop the hatcheries. But Maru clearly wanting to max out, hoping the defensive engagements went super well for him. I guess they only went well once, and then the rest of them actually weren't that great.
Well, we're going on to Pillars of Gold, and we are loading up, getting ready here. Armani currently leads 1-0 in this series here against Maru, of all people. For me personally, coming into this group, I felt like it was almost a sure deal for our Terrans here going on. But Armani showing currently the class that he was able to show in this current GSL run, and I'm loving it so far. I really liked the fact that he was able to punish up towards the top there after having that weirder engagement down towards the west. But let's jump in to our second map. And I'll give it over to you, ZG.
In the bottom left, taking that last game, point of the board, he is a freak of freaks, Armani.
Currently 1 game up, doing well for himself. And up to the top right, needing to bring it back here in the blue, it is Maru.
You know, now that we don't have the music intros, I kind of miss them. I feel like something's missing.
I feel like it's just muted for us. I feel like
it might be
on Discord. I'm assuming they're there. Yeah. I'm just watching the preview and I'm like, have they switched over yet? Okay, I've switched over. I'll do the next one.
Yeah, we just can't hear it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay then. All right, then you get on it. I was gonna say something feels off, but I'll fix it. All right. So yeah, Armani doing that, like, I think just, yes, it started off with the Roach attack, and we can kind of like, analyze that to whatever extent we really want to. But I really feel like with the rest of the game looking like it did, it was just mostly Armani showing how good he is in the macro game, which he did show the last time they played together, but just was a little bit short, as Maru in offline tournaments and GSL just has a little bit extra, I suppose, just that special part of the tournament that he wants to prove that he can win. He can actually do so against UI, but that's a difficult task. Still, it's very different when we talk about Maru online versus offline.
Yeah, definitely. There was always the debate back when even I was commentating of, is Maru just really good at that preparation style tournament, in GSL where you've got like a week or so to prepare for your next opponent, or even longer sometimes, compared to these marathon fast games. I'm in the next one, I'm in the next one, I'm in the next one, kind of weekend style tournaments that we used to have where you would turn up and not really show too much. And that's taken away from even online. And then online, you've got constant opponents. But I mean, sometimes when you're like Maru, when you play like Maru, the skill transcends that a lot of the times, but sometimes online it just doesn't line up.
Yeah, which is not to take anything away from Armani. Armani just played a really great game. I think, if anything, that attack, again, didn't do a lot of direct damage. The indirect damage we discussed during the game. On top of that, it really did throw off Maru's plan. Maru was thinking, if nothing happens, then I get a pretty fast drop into probably a pretty fast push because I'm being a little bit greedy here, and then I can control the narrative. And Armani just kind of turned that on its head and said, like, no, I'm going to control it. And by the time you think you can control it, I've actually got creeps that have actually got mutas. So that was a nice interruption to the Terran momentum, I suppose. We talk also a lot about how Terran is a momentum-based race. Certainly that is true. And now Maru has got to make sure that, either takes the risk and says that Armani doesn't do that again, continues doing 3CC builds, which he already is not doing, or he changes it up and actually goes for, even Stim Liberator would at least give him a few more options to defend something like an early push, which is happening again.
Yep, gotta be careful. Armani is just wanting to, as you say, it's control the momentum, control the pace, right? And I think that is probably where he feels most comfortable. But Maru is going to have a bit more to hand here if he so desires with that Starport. Now switching on over. Like it.
Banshees are exactly what he wants right now.
Yep.
Ooh, nicely done, Maru.
I was hoping, it was always going to come too late anyway in the last game, right? But if you've got a Banshee against a Roach Ravager, what are they going to do? Unless you somehow get hit by Corrosive Biles, which that should never happen, then you're going to be sitting pretty.
Yeah, exactly. And that should really never happen when it's Maru in charge. Maru, maybe, he could have picked up on like the slightly later third base, but he has not gotten back in there to see the gas. He's not gotten back in there to see the Roach Warren. I think this is just him playing it safe. That's usually why we see Banshees occur. It's like, I think my opponent could do it on this map, could even do 1-1 Roach push later down the line, Banshees help there. But also to change it up, in case they're thinking of doing it again later down the line. Show Banshees, say, I'm capable of doing this opener, maybe they're deterred from doing it. In this case, and when the Banshee shows itself, which is already done to the Lings, Armani's going to know that this push has a much less chance of working. And he's going to have to either just try and make it work. Hopefully Maru messes up, or he's going to try and go back in the drones. He's going back into Ling. 16 Ling's also going to help out against the Hellions here. Now, this is a really risky move by Maru because a lot of the time with the Roach push, it's not the Roaches that cause the damage. They open up the floodgates. It's the Lings afterwards that really cause all that damage. That's what the Banshees will also struggle with. So you got to be careful about actually sacrificing your Hellions. And I think he realized, like, I might be in trouble here. So he pulls back the Hellions, scans the main, and now he should be defended.
Yeah, definitely. Thankfully, the Hellions are very, very quick, along with that Reaper as well. But if the Hellions had somehow got into the main, that would have been fantastic. But the Queens were very well reacting on the ramp as well. Here are the Banshees, though. They are making mincemeat of the Ravagers. Does not want this wall to go down. The Lynx is going to start flooding in here very quickly. SCVs come off the line to try and deal with this, but they're going to go for the wraparound on the Hellions on this right-hand side. Banshee's still doing a lot of work. Eventually, this army will die, but it's how much damage can they get done? 13 workers go down, 40. Oh, it just keeps on going. Not too bad. Not too bad at all.
Yeah, all of the natural workers going down. The third CC absolutely needs to finish in this game if Maru wants to bring it back. By not having his Hellions controlled up into the main base, by not having the ability to produce more Hellions because he had already swapped off his factory, it was again those Lings that really get that damage done. But that is going to be it. Armani went back into droning. Baneling Nest layer is on the way. So Maru loses 22 SDVs. That's basically what you want from the attack. Either that or a GG, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that Armani is glad about how that went, because it could have gone a lot worse too. But this is the time where 3CC really looks strong. This is the time where the Zerg players who end up losing these types of games go, mules are too good. Nerf.
Gotta catch up somehow. This gonna be difficult though. We've got ourselves those Spore Crawlers finishing up, thanks to the fact that you, with the attack, buy a little bit of time to have the reaction available for the Banshee follow-up that's coming along here. So, and you already had 5 Queens before we even had the fight actually go down at the front anyway. So there's some movable anti-air here to be able to deal with it, even though they're going to be annoying for a little while.
Yeah, certainly. Maru Banshees. Maru not going to grab much more for now, but by keeping them alive, he'll help for any further pushes, which Armani actually already building 10 roaches. I got to believe, yeah, that means he's going to go for the other all-in, follow-up all-in really quickly. That would be difficult to do if the Banshees stay alive, though. Again, and this would be maybe even more roach dependent, but maybe he's just preparing for the drop, actually. That was a lot of roaches, but okay, all right.
Yeah, you make a lot of sense. I mean, there's more roaches on the way as well. He already had 13 that were just popped, so getting some more Ravagers coming along as well here. And Glory Constitution will finish up soon. As you say, the purpose to be able to kill off the drops as they come along too, eventually we'll be able to clean them up.
Yeah, I think he's going to clean it up and then go for... Yep, okay, there we go. I was like, well, he doesn't have any evolution chambers, so he's clearly committing to something. And there is a Nidus Worm. So, all right, this can get awkward, but let's see what the drop does first. It's going to find a completely undefended main base. Spore Crawler goes down, opening up further opportunities for the Banshees or the drop. Queen goes down. That's a lot of roaches for Maru to see.
Yeah,
you know, that's... I think that may tip him off or at least put him into the cautionary mode, but he still hasn't seen the Nidus Worm.
Yeah, and he's moving out to his third base as well, sieging up there. Come on, there's got to be some reason that there's that many roaches. There's got to be, Maru. What are you going to put two together here? As the Queens will push this away. And this is still on the offensive position. Get an Overseer is okay, but it's definitely not enough with another 9 roaches about to pop. It's just going to bull rush it.
Yeah, he might just be very comfortable because his Banshees are alive and he's got 2 tanks. I mean, I think that's playing with fire. You know, a couple of bunkers, even for like some SimCity edition, can be really nice. But his drop, well, it's not doing a whole lot, is at least keeping tabs on where the army is. And as he sees the army move out, he's finally going to pull back. He is going to build a single bunker. Yeah. Banshees are already finding the roaches.
I think you just bring your Queens with you through the Nidus Worm, and then it'll try and negate the Banshees as much as possible here. Nidus Worm's going on up in the main base, actually, here. Oh, no, this could go very, very badly for Maru if this hits right. That's not all of his roaches. There are still a lot of roaches in that Nidus Worm. He gets it. Oh! Denial and into GG. Armani knows when he's done.
Yeah, I feel like if he had played a follow-up macro game, it could have been maybe a little bit different, but there's a lot of ifs and what's and whatever for that one. Truth is, he got hit by Banshees in a build that was going to do poorly against Banshees, and while it did get a lot of damage done, the Banshees were once again going to help out for the follow-up push. So yeah, it was a bit of a long shot with the idea of going for the follow-up. Didn't work out, taps out, and we move on to game 3.
Yeah, sometimes that's how it plays on out here. Armani tried something. I didn't do too well. Anyway, that is 1-1. We're going to go to a short break, ladies and gentlemen. When we return, it's game number 3 of Armani versus Maru.
welcome back. Hello. But the Kalaris is going to take it, but here I am. Welcome back, everyone. It is game 3.
I don't know what happened in my brain. I was just like, anyway, yeah, we're back. Yeah, that's right. What was I going to say? Something about Armani, all in. Yeah, I remember now. So there was a little bit of a reaction in chat into question marks. But of course, if you've got no upgrades on roaches going up against a normal Terran composition in this game, you're going to have to tap out ZG if that gets denied like that. It's very difficult to come back.
I think if he gets denied once in the main, but his entire army is still alive, he just goes, okay, I guess I'll try the front. He tries it, but I think he still loses. But especially because I got denied in the main and like a quarter, whatever it was of his army was pushing the front and dying. Yeah, of course you tap out. I think that might have just been his plan from the get-go, right? The roach attack into the roach follow-up if it doesn't quite kill his opponent. But actually with really, the Banshees just make it so difficult. But we'll talk more about it after the intros. We arrive on Death Aura for the final game of this series. In the top left, he is the Red Zerg, Armani.
And down to the bottom right, in the blue, it is Maru. Yeah, I don't know why I just blanked out. I heard the producer count down 3, 2, 1, and then I was like, no, there's nothing. I'm just a blank face of.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're just sitting there being offended that I accused you of sitting on a golden throne and not having to make lobbies.
That might be the one, yeah. Now that I've said, we were talking about making lobbies with Gameheart, and now that I've said that I don't think I ever had to make Gameheart lobbies, of course I did. Like, there was so many ridiculous situations and like IEM qualifiers and whatnot. But anyway. All right, what have we got?
It's kind of amazing how much stuff we've cast. It's very easy to forget even the bigger things.
Yeah.
Even the things that are so annoying. But anyways, to this game. So, that last game. The last game already was topsy-turvy because of the Banshees. Like, it literally started off just not good for Armani. He knows it, but he knows that it can sometimes kind of like even out, and those killing 22 SCVs is, in some cases, you can argue it's almost the bare minimum of what that all-in has to do because 3CC is on the way. 22 SCVs plus a canceled command center is a different story. 22 SCVs with fast 3CC. Like, there's different points of which 22 SCVs is either enough, not quite enough, or actually pretty good. I still say that was one of those games that is absolutely playable for the Zerg, but does actually lean towards the Terran because they have drops, right? If it was a macro game, that's the hypothetical here. That they have drops, they have upgrades, they kind of control the flow for the next couple of minutes as long as they scout that it is no follow-up all-in. Yeah. And sometimes that's exactly what the Terran kind of assumes. So Armani may have been trying to once again just go like, well, I hope he screws up. I hope his Banshees die in a failed effort to kill drones. And I hope that his drop comes as I hit him. And he has to race back home and it turns into an awkward situation. But again, the Banshees did not die. And that is just like so powerful. And I know the Queens can come in the Nidus Swarm before everyone starts yelling at me. Like, I know that was one of the purposes of the Nidus Swarm. It's so unlikely too that the Nidus Swarm gets up anywhere close where Maru doesn't have time to protect his Banshees or to pull back and then just gather his troops, right? Because if it was a forward Nidus Swarm and the Queens were starting their slow march up the ramp or something like that, Maru just goes like, okay, and then just pulls back, And Mike's Banshees pulls back on his natural and it's all good. He was in a fine state. But you do not play that game after that denial for Armani. Absolutely not. Anyone saying that he could have played that out from that point, that's just wrong.
Yeah, you've got a very low chance of winning things out, given all the circumstances. I imagined what he was going to do with the Nidus was either put it at the front of the third, but even then, that's not like a crippling blow. And then if you put it in between the natural and the third, you're limited by, lack of high ground vision up towards the ramp sometimes, the slow creep, as you're mentioning, with the Queens having to waddle around and, maybe spread creep. But Roach Warren's on the way once again, and Banshees are on the way once again here. So it's not looking too dissimilar from our previous game. Quick layer now.
Yeah, I thought he saw a tech lab, but I guess he was waiting for it to actually be researching. But either way, once he started researching, he canceled the Roach Warren. So I do think that is the right call.
Yeah.
Overlord speed, telling him how much he should dedicate if he was going to go into roaches. Is it just roaches and lings? Is it just roaches? Like, I like the lair a lot better. Speed kicks in at the exact right time, but maybe not. Actually, the Hellions. Okay, 5 drones. Yeah.
Yeah, not as much as I thought it was going to get, considering how long he survived in that area. He got a lot of bruised drones and a lot of bruised lings, but not much more than the 5. Yeah, and I was surprised when I saw the Roach Warren go down, because I'm like, okay, you did this in game 1, it worked really, really well. You did this in game 2, it's kind of, it's not really hitting the mark. And then from there, scouts it out and is able to deal with it. So why can I hear an echo of myself?
Yeah, they're trying to fix some stuff in the background, guys. Yeah, I think that I feel like Armani is trying to go off of this idea that, one, he wants to interrupt Maru's flow, which is great. I think that's necessary even. And that, 2, Maru is likely to show a couple of fast 3cc builds, right? Like the first game started off with him, one of the greediest builds you can. But Maru, as opposed to being stubborn, which has been one of his, I feel like, his traits online in the past, like I'll just 2 racks in the death and the limbs, like Maru, no, stop it. He's actually he's mixed it up. He's gone for the Banshees. Now against a player, that's worse than Armani. I mean, I feel like in someone who's stuck in the run at 32, Maru might even say like, oh, this is fine. Okay, well, this isn't fine. Oh God,
run away.
Okay, all right. Sorry, that he would be like, oh, I'll get Banshees, I'll be safe, and then I win because I'm Maru. But against Armani, who has really tested him in the macro stage, yeah, it is actually a bit like, if Armani was just pure on macroing, I feel like Maru wouldn't like his opener. And as it is, as Armani cancel the Roach Warren, goes for a faster Spire, and the Banshees do absolutely nothing. This is one of those situations where the Terran's like, man, wish I didn't go for Banshees.
Yeah, and I feel like off the back of game 1, you're like, yes, okay, there was a limiting factor of how Armani made the opener and delayed Maru a little bit with that opener. I feel like even despite that, Armani was still able to hang with him in the proper macro game, the attacks. Again, aside from that one over towards the 4th base, which we'll kind of give a bye for other than that. But I feel like he was really able to do very well with it. So I'm wanting to see this again from Armani, and I want to see how it goes.
I would even be kind of scared of the Zerg player on Death Aura in particular. I've seen some other Terrans just actually veto this over other maps. I guess just the size of it and the way that you eventually get cut almost in half can be quite intimidating. I think it's one of actually the better, I mean, obviously it's good for 4 bases. It's a nice macro map, but I think it's also one of the better maps for like pushing and defending. But we'll get into that more if we get to 4 or 5 bases. Banshees are found out, but barely saved. I mean, they can help out with Ling run bys later on.
Yeah, I'm trying to find those Banshees anywhere they can, and it opens up a little bit more of a relaxed feeling. Actually finding himself a tank, has to move away though. Too many Marines to be able to shoo this away. Armani in the first game did a really good job about harassing with the Mutalisks and keeping them alive during that harassment, but Maru is more on point with the defense here to start things off.
Yep, very nicely done. A little bit late to his armory to start up 2-2 immediately, but you can see there's going to be a huge gap in the upgrades. That's what happens when Armani or any Zerg goes for this faster Muta style. But the benefit is that your Mutas can really try and control the Terran. Obviously, you're going to push off drops, but even be able to scout pushes like this, and hopefully you get a creep spread. Hopefully you get some difficult hooks, and then you can actually still defend this push. But this is a very scary push.
I will say, Maru did an amazing job with 2 packs of Marines herding those Mutas across the map and kind of keeping them back effectively towards Armani's side of the map here, which is now enabling this push quite nicely from a position. And those Banelings will get a few of the Marines at the front, trying to dive in with Mutas onto a tank, but do not get it. I think this is good for Maru overall.
It's really scary for Armani. He can clean this up, and grabbing a tank is already a great start.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those scary positions. Your creep spread buys you like 10 extra seconds. You see here, Maru just cleans it up. He might advance his tanks, but he's actually going to respect Armani's position. He's going to pull back, and I think that is very valid, especially after losing that tank. And now Armani can once again explode in the creep spread and explode in the Muta count as well. He did have to stall it out to make 26 Banelings to be safe, but now he can go back into Muta production.
Yeah, if he hadn't have had that tank die off, I think that the high ground, low ground dynamics of where he was trying to attack from could have been held out really nicely against a lot of the army, but it really does take the wind out of the sails a little bit. And these Banshees are going to try and find a little bit of damage over towards the 5th base. There's a nice amount of Overlord spread here, so he's getting good heads up about when units are coming across the map, but they are invisible, so maybe he hasn't spotted them exactly until just now.
Yeah, they might be the only thing that goes across this map. Armani really has some serious map presence. The Banshees, I thought they were just going to go for the 5th, but I guess it was pretty healthy, so they could go for the drone instead. Bit of a cute split. Going to save one Banshee, other one dies.
I don't think he got those drones because they went in the extractor, so unfortunate, but this one's going to sit around over here. I think the Overlord can actually see it, so I'm just going to come over and clean that up. And then beyond that, Maru right now doesn't really have much map presence. He's just confined to his 3 bases, now getting his 4th base up and running down towards the bottom, trying to position some units to greet that. And a Ling tried to run over there and scout out when that was coming along, but he can just poke in with the Overlord if needs be to spot that out. That's a lot of Mutalisks now, holy moly.
Yeah, 21, and they're going to have +2 in like a minute here, so they are quite scary, constantly threatening even the production lines. I mean, Maru with the Banshees did manage to like buy a lot of time where he didn't have to worry about them. He knew they were chasing the Banshees, so he didn't have to worry about splitting up his Marines, and he could get his 4th base up pretty securely. But now it is just that relentless Zerg attack. If that's how they want to play it, it looks like Armani indeed is going to go for the push. Actually, it's going to go as far as he can see a tank and then pull back.
Yeah, I'm wondering how deep that tank line actually went for this position, because there's only one tank there. You probably could have got more if you'd have, you know, hindsight's 2020. But having only one tank there as that kind of tank line is not that much defense, actually.
I actually really like the missile turrets in the main base. It almost reminds me of Brood War. Like, you really got to take the Mutas seriously. I mean, eventually even having building armor would be helpful for that, but that's going to be only after his 3-3 is done, which for Maru, again, faster upgrades. When he has 3-3 and a maxed out army, his army will even be bigger. Again, that whole drone versus SCD dynamic. So that is when, once again, Armani has to be scared and either chooses to attack, you know, defend rather, or go for the huge run by. And I would say he goes for the run by if Maru was closer, but Maru's still got a lot of creep spread to go through. He's got actually going to more of the peripheral bases, the ones that don't matter as much.
Oh my.
He's going to be a Ling run by while everything else stays at home.
That is a huge Ling run by. So many Lings. Where are they all going? Oh, they're all in one group though, and that's not really getting the most of what they want to. Banelings are connecting at the front, and we'll try and push this back, but what is going on? How are these...
I think the problem was, okay, Maru actually had some group, I don't know where those came from, but I was like, oh, did he bring everything forward and he was maxed out, so he just had no reinforcements? I was a little scared of that. Burrow was kind of cute, but Maru was able to see it. He did pull back a large chunk of his army from the front lines, so he deals with the Mutas as well, but that means that the front lines might be a little bit weak, and Armani knows that, but what a beautiful position. I mean, it's not doing very much. It did actually allow him to grab the hatchery, so I shouldn't say that, but it's not advancing anytime soon with its current type of army. But in that position, Armani was not clearing that up.
No, very irritating place to try and get onto. Maru now will retreat back from that location to try and hold off what's going on back at home, because these Mutalisks are still being pesky. With that many Mutalisks, the missile turrets go down fast if they're not instantly repaired, and even then they're doing splash damage to the SCVs around them. So, cute contamination on that. But beyond all of that, getting a lot of SCVs extra.
Yeah, I mean, 5 extra SCVs is not too much, but it's already on top of that Ling run by, plus a couple of Marines. At the end of the day, he's lost 12 Mutas, is left over with 12. And he's choosing not to replace those. 12 is a decent number, takes on Mutas, takes on a Liberator if you need it, but he's on his way to Ultras. Now, Chitinous Planning is not quite done. This doesn't have to have Ultras in it. It's just going to go right for that Planetary, and the army's too late to stop it, so down goes the Command Center.
He just wants to absolutely smash into these locations, even on the 3rd base as well here with Lings and Ultralisks, trying to bring this down and getting the wall, getting a supply depot with supply drop as well would be fantastic. Just units everywhere here for Armani. Maru's having a hard time cleaning all this up.
Again, using Burrow to at least force out a scan. Now, Maru was starting to accrue a bank alongside Armani, so it's definitely not... he's not out of the game at all. You know, he builds the SCVs or doesn't. Actually, he's got 3 more Marauders taking up the SCVs, and he's a bit supply blocked, but then his army is still pretty damn good. He's got 40 army supply leads, taking the fight in the middle of the map. It's a very awkward fight. Bailing's actually hitting. That's not what Maru wanted, but he might still be able to take out the rest of the Ultras as he can micro against them.
And eventually he will bring them down. They're not dying that fast, though, because there was just not that many Marauders. There was 15 to 45 Marines during all of this. Now kind of that balance is going to be up to a little bit as production goes on, but losing these engineering bays, losing a little bit here and there. I mean, he's got 3-3 anyway, but, you know, that's by the by. Would like maybe a missile turret or something if the mutant production kept going, but it's not gonna, so we're fine.
Yeah, and that... it's now it went from like, oh, that's definitely recoverable to like, ooh, okay, something's gotta happen.
Yeah.
Something good's gonna happen from Maru. That was not the fight he was hoping to take. I think there was a minute there where, or second, you know, millisecond, where he was like, is he really gonna take this fight? And that millisecond meant that he didn't quite have the concave he maybe should have. But the fight went well enough for Armani. It still didn't go super amazing for him either, as his army supply was lower. But he's already rebuilt the Banelings, rebuilt the Ultras, and Maru's on not a lot of splash here on the front lines. He's got Widowmine's back at home, which he's going to have to retreat back into.
It's going to get even harder soon with 3-3 almost finishing up. He's taking this fight just before 3-3. It's not ideal for Armani, but he knows that he can continue to push this army back here and really keep it locked down. And now with 3-3 finished, the Ultras gain a bit more traction. And then, you know, complement this with a few more units. Maybe it could be a run over in the next fight.
Maru needed that base. He tried taking the bottom left, and that was also denied. Now the top right's denied. He's still only on 4 bases. That's not great. If he turtled, he could have enough economy to build more command centers, but he really doesn't want to turtle. He's trying to take these advantages. He wants to use a superior army supply, but, you know, 20 supply up when you're on creep and not a lot of Widow Mines actually isn't that impressive.
Oh, indeed. One more order goes to... Oh, a big hit there. Actually takes down quite a few Banelings after that Ultralisk dies. Not too bad for Maru, but still, he's going to have to deal with a few more waves of this.
Getting that 5th base is a little more difficult on Death Aura. If you get the 5th, then you could probably get the 6th. You know, there's that pushing and defending power I was talking about, but he's not been able to get a 4th, or 5th rather. His 4th would be once again under attack. He's got a tiny squad of units, but certainly not all of his army, as the rest of his army went up to the top right. A couple of Liberators could help out. That's been one thing that Armani's missing. No Corruptors and a very low mute count now.
Oh, no.
That command center is going to go down, can't be lifted. And that is Maru now down to 3 bases.
Yeah, really crippling him at this point. Yes, he's losing quite a few units whilst pushing with this every single time as Armani, but he's still keeping Maru on his side of the map while getting his economy, you know, back properly up and running. 15 mutants are popping actually here to probably try and eventually deal with these Liberators, I guess, considering the fight that is eventually going to go down when everything hits. Actually, he has nothing to answer to them just yet.
Yeah, the mutants could help take out the Liberators for sure. Usually be Corruptors, because they can also fly over Marines a little bit longer, but I guess not just taking out the Liberators, but also, I guess, maybe a counterattack in mind. He's going to have to defend right here, right now, however, and that's actually a very fearsome Terran army. Armani, not quite able to break that, is going to lose a base and a lot of units.
This is the perfect opportunity for Maru. He's constantly taken these fights, moved across the map whilst taking them, and found the ground that he needs to, taking out another base. No, don't friendly fire. Don't, just, sending 2 Lings forward.
Yeah, Maru's gonna have to return all the way home. See, this is the position he would want. You know, where his army was, he wanted a command center there. He wanted to be pushing from there. But having to return all the way home, he gives Armani a lot of time to breathe. Armani is still on 68 workers on 5, almost 6 bases. So it's actually a closer game than I anticipated. That fight did not go that well for Armani, but now he has those mutants that he built up, right? So I was saying that it's not just for Liberators, it's also for buying more time, killing the production. But those missile turrets in the main, really doing a great job. 2 Liberators, not quite enough anti-air, unfortunately. If they were the old Liberators, there would have been. The mutas are eventually pushed back.
And give it a cheeky magic box on the Liberators. Don't clump them up and you'll be totally fine, it seems. And I feel like there just wasn't that many Lings and Banelings with the Ultralisks when that fight came on over towards what is effectively the 6th base for Armani. And they really didn't help them in terms of just, you know, buffering for those Ultralisks to get up to the right spot. So the Marauders were dealing with them quite nicely. And now we're still in a position where, the burrowed Ling.
Yeah. And he really needs mules. I mean, you can see there's a bunch of mules already, but luckily one scan was barely available. Maru has done a decent job denying those bases that Armani does need. I mean, he's still okay-ish on the first 5 bases of the game, but it is now becoming more of a question. Like, Armani's been able to throw away a couple of bad fights, saying, well, I got the economy, I got the bank. He no longer has that. But what he does have now is an equal army supply because he doesn't have 90 drones.
Don't throw any of these Lings away. I mean, they're not expensive, but you do still want as much as possible for the potential fight that will be coming up here. Maru spreading himself out across the map. I think he's consolidating all his forces down to the south, and he's going to be trying to fight this. I think you need to pick up. I think you need to get out there, but you can't because the Mutalisks are on this as well. This is a sacrifice, although the position is quite good to actually took out quite a bit of that, but eventually will get cleaned up.
He was trying to target fire down the Mutas. Whenever they came in, he was trying to tear them down, hoping that maybe at least he could go to the low ground. But I don't know if he was late to the pickup or really thought that might just be enough. The Burrowed Banelings are scanned. That would have been a nasty fall right there. The 10 SCVs also went down to a run by. Maru is very all in. 27 SCVs. He needs to win this fight, but it's an even army supply. It's off creep, and that's about as much as he can hope for.
Yep, and I don't know if this is really going to work out for him. There's a lot of Zerg now amassing up here. It's in a small choke, but it's really not that big a deal here. Lings go for the wraparound on one of those Marauders at the front here. Baneling's trying to catch on up with it. All the Marauders are going to die, and when they have gone, I don't know if these Marines at the back are going to be able to do much left here for Maru. It is going to be done. He'll crunch down. GG. Oh, my.